So, you think you're ready for the UFC, huh?
It's time! And we are underway. Oh, flipped him over. Oh, man, this is nasty. Oh! Now with the knees. Working for the triangle. What an onslaught of attack here. Oh, right hand out of hurt. There it is. Going for the arm bar. He's got it. Wow. What a great reaction from the crowd. Nice. Absolutely vicious. Boom, on the button. That's it. It is all over. Wow.
Like the dozens of fighters who appear on its roster, UFC 2009 Undisputed is a game that's at its best inside the octagon. Outside of combat, presentation is far from perfect, and the career mode is unnecessarily clunky. But step into the octagon, and you'll find a mixed martial arts fighting game that's both accessible and deep, and which demands strategic thinking and quick reflexes in equal measure. For the purposes of the game, every fighter specializes in two disciplines. That's one striking, which can be boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai, and one grappling, which can be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, or judo. The intuitive controls, which map your fighter's limbs to the four face buttons, are pretty much the same regardless of which disciplines you're using. But the moves at your disposal are varied enough that every style feels different. If you play predominantly as a striker, you're going to spend the majority of your time throwing punches and kicks, targeting your opponent's legs and body if you want to tire him out, or his head if you're looking for a knockout. As a grappler, on the other hand, your goal is to take your opponent to the floor, where you can indulge in some brutal ground and pound, or use the right analog stick to transition between different mount positions in the hope of gaining an advantage. Forcing an opponent to tap out and submit is an especially satisfying way to earn victory as a grappler. The frantic button mashing and analog stick rotating that both fighters must engage in when a submission hold is initiated and the struggle ensues feels very appropriate, even if it's not elegant. At first glance, Undisputed's combat system can be pretty intimidating, but playing through the comprehensive tutorial is a great way to get a handle on the basics. Beyond that, you can expect to learn a lot from your experiences inside the octagon, where you'll soon realize that different opponents employing different techniques often demand different approaches. You can dominate a fight by going on the offensive with your chosen style, of course, but if you're not ready to defend against whatever the other guy is bringing to the party, there's a good chance you'll be the one hitting the canvas.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Mario Yamasaki has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout,
Podcast with the victory.
That's one of the great things about UFC 2009 Undisputed. You can spend 2 rounds getting beaten to a pulp until your face is covered in cuts and bruises, but there's always a chance that you can turn the fight around with a well-timed reversal or counter.
It is all over!
Most of the fighters on the game's roster are well-rounded enough that while they clearly prefer one or the other, they can hold their own both standing up or on the ground. This won't necessarily be the case in career mode though, because you have to create your own fighter from scratch. The tools for customizing your guy's appearance are a bit rudimentary by today's standards, but when you start spending points on his attributes and on different aspects of his game, you realize that there's a lot of depth there. That's because in addition to the basic strength, speed and cardio attributes, there are no fewer than 16 different offensive and defensive skills that you can also spend points on. Spending points in any of these areas has a noticeable effect on your fighter's performance, especially early in your career when you're pitted against fictional fighters while preparing for matchups with the big boys. Training between fights is handled in a number of different ways, none of which are especially satisfying. You can increase your base attributes doing nothing more than clicking through menus. You can spar for a couple of minutes to earn skill points. And you can visit training camps and perform specific tasks to unlock new moves. It's great that you really feel like you're progressing as a fighter as you play through the career mode, but at times it can feel like you're spending more time navigating menus, reading repetitive emails and managing your schedule on the calendar than you are fighting inside the octagon. Worse still, when you unlock new sponsor logos, which you need to add to your shorts in order to level up your credibility, simply adding a new logo to your